What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Truzz the Bank Podcast. I'm here with Joshua, and as always, you can find our pages basically on any podcast platform, or all three segments will be posted on TTB Ravens Media, our YouTube channel. So if you're watching on there, comment your thoughts and opinions. Make sure to subscribe for daily Ravens content. Happy Easter to everybody. We're recording this Easter afternoon, or afternoon for me, kind of evening for Joshua. But we've got a good show planned. Basically, we're going to talk about the top two wide receivers a lot of Ravens fans have in their draft, which one, the Ravens should go if both of them were on the board, between Bateman and Terrance Marshall Jr. And then we're going to get into a bold prediction that I tweeted out. And I think Joshua and I we both kind of like it. We're very intrigued by it. And then, of course, going to finish it off, I've gotten Is This Stupid? So those three segments will be posted Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but Monday will be a double upload, as that will also have a mock draft Monday. But let's get into it. Looking at the two wide receivers, Rashod Bateman out of Minnesota, and then Terrance Marshall Jr. out of, LSU. I'll go over kind of their pro day numbers because both of them had pretty good pro days. LSU's Terrance Marshall, 6'2", had a 39-inch vertical, 10.5 broad, 4.38 40. And then Rashod Bateman came out and he ran 4.39 with a 36-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump. And he's about 6 foot, and we'll give him half an inch. But Joshua, I'll let you go first. If you're the Ravens, what guy is, the top of your board?
Well, y'all, it's that time. It is April, and with April showers also brings the NFL draft. But let's dive into it. Y'all know me. I've been talking about it. Terrance Marshall Jr. That's my guy. For the simple fact, let me give you some of the stats. 106 receptions, 1,594 yards. His average receiving is 15 yards, and he got 23 touchdowns. As long as reception was about 75 yards. We're talking about a long, lengthy guy, a guy that can go and get a guy that can get the jump ball. He can create separation, and also he seems like a young man that just goes in and do his job. Being at LSU, he was in a highly, highly coveted wide receiver group. So, we have to look at it like this. Yes, his numbers are not the crazy wild numbers, but they are the type of numbers that, okay, if I get this young man the ball, he's going to move the chains. He's going to get the job done. He's going to be that star, that plug and play guy, that guy I can immediately get production out of, versus Rashod Bateman. Rashod Bateman received more targets. He had over, correct me if I'm wrong, 2,400 yards, about 23, 24 touchdowns in his career at Minnesota. He was a highly targeted guy. With the Ravens and the system that we're running, it's sad to say it. I don't want to say it, but I had to say it. We can't really go after guys that, that expect to be targeted highly. Far in receptions. The reason why we're a run-heavy offense, and then on top of that, with our run-heavy offense, we don't know if we're going to have a passing game. So we're going to need guys that enjoys blocking for Lamar, playing for Lamar, and making those key blocks for J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. So Terrance Marshall, that's my guy.
Yeah, and you bring up Terrance Marshall. I think a lot of people, they saw the kind of clip or the quote that was taken completely out of context, where basically Terrance Marshall was like, I want to go in an offense that passes the ball. The full kind of context of what he said, shout out, I think it was New Era Zach on Twitter, tweeted out like the full video, or at least that's who I saw it from, where basically he said, yeah, they were like, is there a type of offense that, you'd like to go to? He's like, an offense that passes the ball, a quarterback that can get me the ball. And, you look at all the teams, every team has a quarterback that can get me the ball. So, pretty much wherever I go, I'm going to be good. So that whole thing where people were like, Ravens fans, he's not going to be able to go to Baltimore because he won't want to play there. That was taken completely out of context. And that's done a lot with a lot of these prospects, especially with a team that's hated as much as the Ravens, with a quarterback that's crucified by the media as much as Lamar Jackson. But like, Terrance Marshall would not come to Baltimore and then, pull a John Elway and Eli Manning and say, no, you better send me somewhere else because I ain't catching passes for a former MVP quarterback. So that's just to get that off the chest, because a lot of people will say, oh, Marshall won't want to play in Baltimore. He'll play in Baltimore. And Joshua, you brought up the stacked wide receiver room. You look at the second best wide receiver in that 2019 historic LSU offense. Joe Burrow wins the Heisman. They win the national championship. Justin Jefferson was the second best wide receiver on that team. Okay, he comes into the league, absolute monster. He dominates. He had the best rookie season out of any of the rookie wide receivers, second place in the offensive rookie of the year. And then you look at who was the best wide receiver on that team. Oh, Jamar Chase, a projected, I don't know, I'll say projected top 6 pick, but I've seen, him as high as like number 2 on just overall ranking big boards, ranking talent right next to Trevor Lawrence. When you've got a guy like that, so you got 2 guys that are going to be studs. And then the third guy in that offense, he had 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. Like that's absurd. As the number 3 option to put up 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns on 20 yards per reception, which, we love to see. We're trying to get the Ravens to get a little bit further down the field. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading. I'm sorry for everybody listening. Those were Rashod Bateman stats. In the offense, he had 13 touchdowns. I knew he had more touchdowns, 671 yards. So he had touchdowns. I apologize for reading off the wrong stats. So he was able to have, good production as the number 3, but then he became the number 1 in 2020 because Jamar Chase opted out. He played in 7 games, had 48 receptions. So that's looking at just under 7 receptions a game for 700 yards. So over 100 yards a game and 10 touchdowns. Very productive. And he played significantly less games, 5 less games from the year to year. So he showed, as the one in an SEC conference that is obviously SEC is just the best conference in football. There really isn't debating it. It's been like that for, it feels like, my entire life, which it pretty much has, 20 years.
From high school to college. If you want to play ball, you got to go through the South.
Yeah, nobody's going to, my good old Pac-12. Not known for their football. We had a few years a little bit. But you look at that production. But I will say, Rashod Bateman, he was getting a lot of targets, but he is somebody that is a crisp route runner, a unique type of player, a more of a Keenan Allen type. And I think Rashod Bateman is the better wide receiver prospect. I think that he is. I think for the average team, you would rather go with Bateman. I think he's the 4th best wide receiver in this draft class. However, the Ravens need a particular mold. We have Sammy Watkins. That would be what Rashod Bateman is basically going to be giving you. Now, Rashod Bateman has like a million times more potential than current Sammy Watkins. I'm not trying to say he doesn't, but like Terrance Marshall brings you a new kind of aspect to your offense. And Joshua, I'm with you. I want Terrance Marshall Jr. to come to the Ravens because one, he's got great size, and maybe I'm a height elitist when it comes to the wide receiver group.
We are for the simple fact that we thought so highly of a tall 6'4" Notre Dame receiver that is now going to become a flex tight end.
Yeah, Miles Boykin. There was no wide receiver I think has ever gotten me more excited than Jaleel Scott. The tall wide receivers. We love them. We love Darren Waller, 6'6".
Aaron Millette from Elon. Oh man, I don't even want to speak on it, man. Don't want to speak on it. I was so happy. I watched his highlights. I said, yes, we got Aaron Millette. He came from University of Elon. He's going to do so many numbers. Where he go? I don't know where he went. Same thing with Antoine Wesley. Oh yeah, we didn't got somebody that played with Lamar Jackson. They're going to put him on the 53-man roster. They're going to give him a chance. Where did he go?
What about Quincy Adebayo out of Ole Miss? Another big boy. Where did he go? We love the height. But, this is a first round wide receiver with height. This is something new. But I think that he would just be able to bring that size, that physicality, and that's something that the Ravens actually really need. Because when you have somebody like a Hollywood Brown on your roster, you don't want Hollywood Brown blocking. I like Hollywood Brown, but you don't want him blocking. Like if you have a group of small wide receivers, there's the guy out of Purdue that, I've seen Ravens fans wanting. I'm sorry. I'm not about that multiple 5'9" wide receiver group when all of your plays are pretty much run plays and they're out of the pistol and involve play action because they can't block. Terrance Marshall will be able to come in and at least have the size that would be able to block. I don't know how good of a blocker he is, but, at that size, it at least gives him somewhat of an advantage in the blocking game. The one downside of Terrance Marshall, though, is I believe his lateral quickness is not anything, amazing. Like he's much more of a straight line type of speed, but like, come on, that straight line speed is straight line speed, like speed is speed. So he'd be able to come in and he'd be able to run those intermediate routes, make the big catches, and really he'd be a faster Anquan Bolden, for what the Ravens want.
A lot of boxing out. Anquan Bolden, he made sure when it was time when the play was directed to him, he made sure that corner was not nowhere near him catching the ball, and he knew how to catch it with his hands. Same thing Terrance Marshall Jr. can do.
Exactly. So Terrance Marshall Jr., I think we both have him over Bateman, but that's not to say if you're watching this and I don't know, you're just not a Ravens fan. What's wrong with you? Just kidding. And you're like, oh, but I want my team to draft Bateman. Bateman fits in the general scheme, but for a team that literally just needs a big physical wide receiver, Terrance Marshall Jr. is that guy. But I think that's going to do it for this first segment. Thank you, everybody, for watching this segment. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe for daily Ravens content, like the video. But, go check out the podcast if you're watching this on Sunday, on Easter, because you can just listen to the other two segments.